Let's begin our chat with the most important thing that you could ever understand about deadlifting. And this is the law, whether you want it to be or not. And it applies to anybody, no matter what your proportions are, no matter what sex you are, age you are, how strong you are. This applies when you are going to pull a heavy bar off the floor. So the way that we are going to learn the setup, the deadlift setup, puts you into this position and allows you to apply the force into the bar and the floor that elicits a vertical and efficient bar path. Okay, so this is just the most efficient pulling position from the floor with the least amount of slop and the least amount of opportunity for wasted energy. Now, there are thousands of different competitive powerlifters and people all across the world who start their deadlift setup in different positions with different stance, with whatever. And every single time a bar is heavy enough, you are going to find yourself in this position no matter where you started from. So let's just talk about what is called the standard pulling position. So you can see over in the figure here on the right, number one is that the bar is going to be over the middle of your foot. You can see the middle of his foot right here. This is the position where the bar and your center of mass is balanced over your base of support. So in the standard pulling position, the bar is going to be slightly in front of the shin over the midfoot against your legs. The shoulders are going to be slightly in front of the bar. You can see here the axis, the bar path right here, and you can see that the shoulders are slightly out in front of the bar, the shoulder joint itself, and that places the scapula, the middle of the scapula, directly over the barbell. Now, in this position, all the muscle mass of the upper back is the central position of the muscle mass of the upper back and puts it in the best position to transfer the force from your hips through your arms into the bar. Okay, and it's also at that angle where our lats muscles, the big muscles of the back, attach to the inside of the humerus at 90 degrees, and that allows for better force transfer into the bar, as well as keeps the bar over the middle of your foot against your legs. So the shoulders are going to be slightly out in front of the bar for those two reasons. And then the third rule to the standard pulling position is that the back must be held in rigid, normal anatomical position. So this could mean slight extension or in just normal anatomical position. There are people who are very kyphotic, like myself, who look as though they're deadlifting with a round back, even though they're just deadlifting with a rigid back in normal anatomical position. All of this facilitates a vertical and efficient bar path so we can lift the most weight so we can get strong. So we're going to look into a few different deadlifts here, some world championship deadlifters, and I'll show you how they follow the standard pulling position, even though they look like they start from a ton of different positions. I'll also show a video of myself showing the kyphosis, so you can see that I have some skin in the game here as well. Let's begin with a video of Eddie Hall and his world record deadlift of 1,102 pounds. Now, again, I'm not saying that I am critiquing his form, but I am just showing this as an example that the deadlift standard pulling position applies to Eddie Hall pulling 1,100 pounds. He's using a deadlift suit, which means he does really use a little bit of momentum to help him off the floor, but the body positions yourself in the standing pulling position anyway. So, watch this. We'll go through one at normal speed and then I'll slow it down. All the way to the lockout. Boom. Okay, so you'll notice when I slow this down, notice how Eddie, he begins the pull with his hips in this low squatted position, almost with parallel thighs. Now, Again, the argument here on why that they do this is, again, they're using a deadlift suit that helps create a little bit more momentum and a lot more tightness. So the squat helps as he transitions into the pull. But this is the position that he starts in. And a lot of people see this and think this is where I need to start my deadlift. Because if Eddie Hall starts his deadlift with his butt down low, then I must too. But we are not Eddie Hall now, are we? So watch what happens and pay attention to where his hips are and where his shoulders are from now to where the bar comes off the floor. All right. The barbell is now off the floor by about an inch, and we can see that the bar is up against his shins over his midfoot, and his shoulders have tracked out in front of the bar. Let me replay that again. Watch this. Pulling back, rolling it in, squatting. Look at the hips and shoulders. Butt down. Now the hips rise, shoulders rotate out in front of the bar. Now the bar comes off the floor and he finishes the pull. There's the first example of the standard pulling position. No matter where you're starting from, when the bar comes off the floor, you're going to find yourself in this position. Let's go to Jamal Browner with a 501 kilogram deadlift. And this is going to be sumo, but it still applies. The standard pulling position applies to the sumo as well. We can watch what happens here. I'm going to go just the normal speed. Insane. Now, I'm going to go back and play at half speed. He begins the pull by taking a shit ton of slack out of the bar. Pulls up on the slack, which is great. Okay. Now, his shoulders are really like right above the bar, and his hips are a little bit low, but watch what happens as he begins the pull. The shoulders rotate forward, right there, over the barbell, and the bar's over the midfoot, and he finishes the pull. So even Jamal Browner, with this big, wide sumo stance, starts with his hips a little bit low, yanks the slack out of the bar, probably by pressing with his quads, and then when he goes to initiate the pull, the shoulders rotate out over the bar and his hips get in position. So even with a sumo deadlift, the standard pulling position applies. Now, to make sure that this applies to not just Eddie Hall and Jamal Brower and everybody else, let's take a look at one of the strongest women in the world. She obviously has a lot different proportions than both of the two that we looked at prior to this. Jessica Butner, I'm not sure what this is. This looks to be something over 500 pounds. She walks around like 180. So very impressive pull. Now, let's take a look at her pull. You can see right here, her hips are starting fairly low, and her shoulders are really just right above the bar. Now watch what happens as she pulls. She's actually strong enough with her legs that she's able to push the bar off the floor before her shoulders get out in front of it. So watch right here. Slowly see her knees pull back and her shoulders rotate out in front of the bar as the bar comes off the floor, and then she finishes the pull. So again, 3 great examples right there of the standard pulling position of the people with hugely different proportions. Now, here's a video of yours truly doing some 500-pound doubles recently. Now, again, I am very kyphotic with my back, which means my upper back is rounded like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So remember the 3rd rule, that the back must be held in rigid, normal anatomical position. So a guy like me, or maybe a guy like you who's got a lot of kyphosis, your shoulders are going to hang off onto the bar, and it's going to look like your upper back is really rounded. Now, again, you can watch my pull here. I start actually with my hips just a little bit too low, and my hips will rise up, my shoulders will get out in front of the bar, and then I'll finish the pull. You can see that little play right there. See how my hips are back, my weight's a little bit forward, and I rock forward and get my shoulders out over the bar and finish the pull. Good, take another big breath, drop my shins, squeeze my chest up, and you can see my shoulders are a little bit too far behind the bar and my butt's too low. Watch what happens. My shoulder rock forward, and then the bar comes up off the floor. There. So again, standard pulling position. You've seen 4 different people with gigantically different anthropometries and different skill levels. And no matter what happens, the laws of the shoulders being out in front of the bar, the back is rigid, and the bar midfoot applies. So as we go through our setup position and you go through the lessons here, you'll see the cues, you'll see the corrections I've made to form checks. This applies and is probably the number one thing that if you can hammer out, your deadlifts will be good forever.